Hello and welcome to the Punt Team. I'm Tom Park, filling in for a very ill Andrew Wilshire, who has lost his voice, believe it or not. The Jets, of course, won last week. First time in a blue moon, so I'm sure we can all forgive Mr. Wilshire for going a bit too hard in the celebrations. Fear not, though, as in true NFL style, the Punt Team have got a backup quarterback waiting in the wings. You can see I'm donning my Jameis Winston jersey here. Hopefully there'll not be too many interceptions, but just like any other rookie backup quarterback, I'll be leaning heavily on my world-class running back, NFL betting analyst Luke Lindholm. Luke, happy Thanksgiving for last week. How are you? And more importantly, how was Thanksgiving?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it was a fantastic Thanksgiving. And for a change, we had three entertaining games on the slate. I mean, normally there's one that you can fall asleep in, especially that middle game, but no way was I sleeping through that Chiefs Cowboys. Wow. It feels like, I mean, we've been talking about it week after week, but do you think the Chiefs are officially in trouble? It's now kind of win or they're done.
Yeah, would you really give up on Patrick Mahomes? I kind of expected him to come back last week. I kept saying to my wife who was watching next to me, "Oh, this is classic Mahomes. This is classic Mahomes." They didn't get the job done, and maybe that is the nail in the coffin for the Chiefs. I just can't rule Patrick Mahomes out in this situation until they are mathematically out of it. I will not give up on the Chiefs. I don't think because we've seen it time and time again, and they are very much in playoff mode now. And yeah, I'm not ready to give up just yet on the Chiefs. Yeah, they're about 16-1 for the Super Bowl. Where would you be playing in that?
I'm definitely staying off as it is right now. I do think they'll pull it out in the end and make the playoffs. I mean, you look at the rest of their schedule, their tough games are at home. Obviously, big Sunday night football game this weekend, welcoming the Texans with the way their defense has been playing. That's going to be a great game. They do get Denver later in the season. And then when it comes to traveling, I know they have the Raiders on the road a bit later. So I'm like you, can't rule the Chiefs out, even with that loss. I mean, I was surprised the defense giving up 30 plus points to that Cowboys offense is obviously flying. And Cowboys are another team that they're playing extremely well. And that NFC playoff race is going to be interesting because we saw the Lions drop another game. The Bears are red hot. I mean, you see them number one seed and talking about it before the show, but sitting at around 33-1 to win the Super Bowl. And the Packers, obviously, big win. That NFC North race is going to be tight. But not only that, I mean, you see anyone can really beat any team in a given week. The Panthers upsetting the Rams this past week. Joe Burrow's back in Cincinnati. We do have multiple kind of divisional races down the stretch here that are going to be very, very interesting. And we'll get into it, but AFC North, that Steelers Ravens matchup this week, that's one I have my eyes on.
Yeah, it was a week for upsets, really. As you quite point out, the Lions and the Eagles. I mean, they've been struggling the last couple of weeks. Who would have thought that? Colts and Steelers seem to be in free fall, but still very much in the playoff picture. But who would have thought the Rams would have lost to the Panthers? I mean, it's really not good for my Buccaneers because all of a sudden I'm a little bit worried about the Panthers, particularly the way our defense is playing. But yeah, the Rams losing at the Panthers, that was a massive, massive upset. I know you've been hot on the Rams for the Super Bowl. Would you be giving up on them just yet?
No, I don't think so. I do think that was a tough loss. I mean, the way the Panthers have been one of the biggest surprises this season, but especially the way they started the year. Big losses to Buffalo, big losses to the Patriots, but then bouncing back. Bryce Young has looked like a different quarterback the second half of the season so far. So they're a fun team I'll be watching on. I know I was big on your Buccaneers to win the NFC South. I do think you guys will still pull it out, especially now getting a bit healthier. Bucky Irvin back last week. That looked big and healthy again. So I do think Buccaneers can pull it out in the end. And yeah, I do still think the Rams are the team to beat in the NFC, but Packers were my Super Bowl pick at the start of the season, and I do like the way they're trending right now too.
Yeah, Jordan Love's starting to get it together. He fell a little bit erratic in the middle of the season, but yeah, he's starting to find his groove again. They're getting healthy again. I think Christian Watson coming back has been a
Yeah.
big, big bonus for the Packers. Yeah, I could see them having a big run. It's just who grabs that NFC North title is going to be key, and particularly for the playoffs. You're going to want to be going to Lambeau as much as you possibly can if you're the Packers. Whether they can kind of hold out and win that division, that's going to be the question. Where do you see the NFC North going?
I do think the Packers will pull it out in the end. I mean, obviously, Bears sitting on top right now, and I tipped them to have under 9.5 wins 2 weeks ago, and they rattle off two straight wins right in my face. So they've been another team that surprised me, but they faced the Packers twice down the stretch here, the Lions again. I do think Chicago will falter a little bit, and this week will really be telling in Green Bay. I mean, I expect Green Bay to rely on their rushing game. I do think they'll pull the NFC North crown in the end. And honestly, my eyes when it comes to different races, most intriguing for me is the MVP race right now. Obviously, as a Patriots fan, love Drake May. It seems like May and Stafford are kind of leapfrogging each other week after week. Obviously, few interceptions from Stafford this past week helped May's case, but now May on a bye, Stafford in a bounce back spot. I think we could see that leapfrog happen again after this week.
Yeah, I must say, Matt Stafford surprised me this year. I did outside fancy the Rams a little bit. I thought that they've obviously got a really formidable offense. My worry was whether Stafford would be able to kind of hold his body together for the season, but he's looked pretty solid. I mean, he threw a few interceptions last week, but defensive line's been pretty strong, and he's not been taking massive hits. And look, he's got absolute studs to throw to in Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua. I thought the Panthers are a funny team, and look, they've been beating good teams at times when they turn it on. I would just rule that as a bad day at the office for the Rams. I think they're better than that. They've looked so solid apart from that game this season, and yeah, I think they'll bounce back. And Matt Stafford's been there and done it, and I still think the Rams are absolutely the team to beat in the NFC. And we were just discussing before the show about your Patriots. They just keep doing it. Unbelievable defense, and they've really, really surprised me. It's kind of unprecedented to come off a season like they did last year and do what they're doing. But as you pointed out, Drake May is an absolute stud, and he would definitely be my pick for MVP, I think. I don't know if I'd necessarily be having a bet at this stage, but if it was me picking the winner, listen, I don't think the Patriots would be anywhere near where they are with 90% of the other quarterbacks in the league. May is the man, and God help the rest of the NFL. The Patriots are back, and they've got a man leading them, and yeah, he's going to be around for years and years, and I think the Patriots will be back to winning Super Bowls very, very shortly.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting race. I think that one seed is going to be key in the AFC because if Denver does end up, they keep pulling game after game. I mean, this past week, overtime against the Commanders. If they get that one seed, going to Mile High isn't easy for anyone. That's the biggest advantage there is. So really hoping the Patriots obviously on bye this week, but need to keep it going the next few weeks. They have the Ravens, the Bills, some true playoff tests. So all my non-Patriots friends can stop calling Drake May big schedule. Tired of hearing that one. So we'll see in the weeks ahead, but lots to look at in the AFC and NFC down the stretch.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into it then. Steelers and the Ravens is the first game we're going to preview. Lot of pressure on the Steelers, particularly Mike Tomlin. We'll have all seen the videos coming from the game last week of the fans shouting "Sack Tomlin." Can they bounce back against a Ravens team who have been 4-1 since Lamar come back, but it was a bit dodgy last week against the Bengals? I've got an opinion of the Ravens that they're not that good. And I know that you were quite warm on them at the start of the season. I know Wilsh was quite hot before Lamar came back. What have you made of them since Lamar's come back? Obviously, their record is pretty healthy, 4-1. They're right in the playoff picture. They're just yet to convince me. What's your thoughts on the Ravens?
Yeah, it's been really a tale of two seasons with the Ravens, right? They started the year offense red hot, but the defense couldn't stop anything, and they're losing games that way. And now it seems like since Lamar has come back, the defense has stepped up, offense has really taken a step back, and then last week we kind of saw both sides of the ball just falling on their faces. Multiple turnovers by Lamar. It was a sloppy game. Obviously, Joe Burrow back for Cincinnati, and I don't think things get any easier right now for, as you mentioned, a Steelers team that they're going to be hungry in this one. And this matchup historically has always been tight. I mean, since you look at back since 2005, the underdog is 29-12-3 against the spread. That's a 71% clip. And when the line is 3 or more, the dog improves to 23-5-3 against the spread. So historically, when the Steelers play the Ravens, my betting strategy is just take the underdog. Take the underdog. That's the way I go. And the way I'm actually going to go on this one is I'm back in Pittsburgh in the first half, plus 3.5 at 5-6. So as bad as Pittsburgh has looked the last few weeks, they're still 8-4 against the first half number this season, which is the best they've been since 2018. Baltimore, meanwhile, they have been brutal starting games. They're just 1-11 on their first half team total over, which is worse than the league. And they've averaged just 7.1 points per game in the first half at home this season, which is dead last in the NFL. So I really don't like Baltimore this week. When you look at divisional teams meeting late in the season with similar records, home favorites are just 45, 73, and 2 against the spread since 2003. And Mike Tomlin, obviously, that offense looked terrible last week. Aaron Rodgers playing with that broken wrist. But Tomlin, historically, when his team has scored under 10 points, he's 10-4 against the spread in the next game. And when he scored 14 or fewer points, when the next opponent is in the AFC North, he's 19-8-1 against the spread. So all things kind of point to a slugfest for me. I do think both teams might start a little bit slow, but I like the way Pittsburgh, they're going to be hungrier for this game. I like them first half plus 3.5 at 5-6.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm not convinced by the Ravens. I get that they're 4-1 since Lamar's come back, but if you look at the teams they've played, the Dolphins, the Vikings, the Browns, the Jets, and then they lost to the Bengals.
Yeah.
They couldn't have had an easier run in the last 5 games. So I think that they're a team that I'm keen to take on. I was surprised to see that the Steelers were available at +6 here. The pressure is mounting on Mike Tomlin. And listen, when you're a competitor like he is, he will have them fired up. And what I really liked was Aaron Rodgers was very quick to come to his defence last week. Yeah. I think the Steelers will come out here with a point to prove. And yeah, I'm just not convinced that the Ravens are all that good. And I think the Steelers are going to hit them hard. This is a big matchup for them. Yeah, I'm more than happy to take the Steelers +6 here. Let's move on then to our next game, which is the Bears and the Packers. This looks an absolute belter of a match. Look, we've spoken briefly about the Bears. Let's just have a discussion about what they've done recently. They have maybe had an easy run-in of games, but goodness me, NFC Championship leaders going into this game. Who would have said that at the start of the season?
Yeah, definitely not me. And even as I mentioned a few weeks ago, I was still out on the Chicago team. I kind of have been saying same thing right there. They haven't really beaten anyone on the schedule, but then we saw Pittsburgh come to Chicago. They did handle them, and then they just walloped the Eagles last Black Friday, especially in Philadelphia. That doesn't happen that often. And I've been even more impressed. Obviously, Caleb Williams, the offense has looked good, but the defense last week was just flying. And you look down the stretch here, I mean, this is going to be a tough trip to Lambeau, but then they get a home game against the Cleveland Browns. They're at home against the Packers there then too. So it really is shaping up for the Bears to, if they can continue to win these NFC North battles, they'll be right in the mix. So scary, scary team in Chicago. And because of that, I really can't, as good as the Packers looked, I can't back them this week. I am going to lean a different way here, and I'm going with Josh Jacobs to have at least 16 rushing attempts at 10-11. So when it comes down to it, the Packers have been really good late in the season. Under Matt LaFleur in December, he's gone 20-4 straight up, 10-1 at home. And with extra prep in December, he's 4-0 straight up. So this is a month where Green Bay really leans into its identity, and that usually means a heavy dose of the run. So Chicago, they had a good defensive week last week against the Eagles, but they're still giving up 5.2 yards per carry, which is 30th in the league. And the Packers already run the ball at a top 5 rate. They're averaging 29.2 rushing attempts per game. When teams have 20 or more carries against the Bears this season, they're averaging 132 rushing yards. So the opportunity is definitely there. I do think the Packers will pull it out, mainly because of the way they've been able to get after the quarterback the last few games. They're averaging 3.3 sacks per game over their last 3. I quoted this similar stat when they played the Packers, but when Caleb Williams is sacked 3 or more times, Chicago is just 3-10 straight up in the past 2 seasons. So all in all, I do think Green Bay will be in a positive game script here, which will mean Josh Jacobs should get the ball early and often. He's cleared 16 or more rushing attempts in 8 of 11 games this season. So I expect him to be a big part of this game plan. So give me Josh Jacobs over 15.5 rushing attempts at 10 to 11.
Yeah, we're thinking along the same lines here. I couldn't agree with you any more on your assessment of the game. I think Caleb might struggle this week in terms of he's still got a habit of holding on the ball too much. Ben Johnson's doing a great job with him, but I think Micah Parsons and this Green Bay defense are going to try and get at him, and I think they'll probably be successful. I'm thinking along exactly the same lines as you, though. I like Josh Jacobs here to have a game, and I'm going to back him to go over 80 yards. Chicago had a really good game last week. They shut down Saquon, all things considered. But generally this season, they've been struggling against the run. Teams are regularly getting chunk yards against them on the ground. So, yeah, give me Josh Jacobs. This Green Bay offensive line is pretty good with the run. I think Josh Jacobs can take advantage. I think he's averaging around 65 yards a game. So 80 yards against a pretty poor Chicago rush defense. I'm going to take Josh Jacobs. I think he'll have a big game here. And I think that Green Bay might get ahead in the game, and it'll be up to them to control it from there. If there's one weakness that I have with the Packers, it's Jordan Love can be a bit susceptible to throwing interceptions at bad times. Yeah. I think he's got better throughout the season, particularly in the last few weeks. And I think if Green Bay get ahead, they'll be leaning on the run a lot. And Josh Jacobs, as a result, I think will have a game of it. And yeah, 80 yards, I think, is very much within his compass. I might even have a play on the yards above. But yeah, 20 to 23 for 79.5 yards and above for Josh Jacobs, I think is a good bet. And we're obviously on the same lines here.
Yeah, definitely. And the turnover is going to be one to watch in this game. I mean, Chicago is leading the NFL in turnover differential at plus 17 picks this season already. So if Love really turns it over, this game could get interesting. I mean, I think he has to keep it clean, which kind of relies on Jacobs a bit more. We saw him back fully healthy last week, going for 83 yards against the Lions. So absolutely love that play with Jacobs rushing too.
Yeah, perfect. Let's move on to the next game then. The Texans at the Chiefs. This, as we've mentioned, the Chiefs have got real playoff wars, really. This is very much win and there's to stay in. And this Texans defense has been red hot recently. This is probably not the kind of game that Patrick Mahomes would be wanting, but I don't know. I just have a feeling that these Chiefs are going to get squeezed through to the playoffs, and then who knows. But yeah, this is a big game. I think we can probably rule the Chiefs out if they do lose this. What's your play here? This is very tight. There's only 3 points in the money line in the Chiefs' favour. What's your play here?
Yeah, I know. I am actually going to just back the Chiefs -3 at 5 to 6. And like we said, this is a must-win spot for them. The good thing is they are at home. And honestly, Mahomes, throughout his career, he's always bounced back. So he's had 3 starts where Kansas City has entered the game, losing 3 of their 4. He's won all 3. 25-17 over the Bengals in 2023, 27-17 over New England in 2023, and 31-13 against the Commanders in 2021. And as I mentioned, when teams come into Arrowhead after playing a road or neutral game the week before, they get absolutely swallowed up. That crowd is going to be rocking, and quarterbacks are just 2-21 straight up against Mahomes at home after playing a road or neutral game. Only Josh Allen and Joe Burrow have escaped with a win. So it is a great bounce back situation for the Chiefs. Also, I mentioned it, but giving up 31 points to Dallas is really uncharacteristic for the Chiefs defense that has played strong all season. But when Kansas City has allowed 30 or more in November or later, Mahomes is 8-0 straight up in the following game. So as for Houston, I will say they are a defense I do not want to see in the playoffs. The way that pass rush is getting after quarterbacks is scary. We saw them sack Josh Allen, I believe it was 8 times 2 weeks ago on Thursday Night Football. But when you look at the road resume, it really isn't too impressive. They're just 3-3 on the road this season. Their wins have come against Cooper Rush and the Ravens early in the year, Cam Ward and the Titans, and an injured Daniel Jones last week. So their losses on the road, they've been competitive, but they've still lost. 5 to the Rams early in the season, by 7 to Jacksonville, and 8 to Seattle. So when everything's said and done, as we mentioned, Chiefs are in must-win situation right here. It is a home game. I do think Kansas City will get the job done, so I'm taking the -3 at 5 to 6.
Yeah, I think it'd be a close game, and I would probably agree with you. I just think when this pressure is on Patrick Mahomes, he knows how to get out there. He's been there, he's done it. And I'm going to go along a similar thought process. I think in this situation, he is going to lean on his all-time tight end, Travis Kelce. So I'm going to take Travis Kelce to get an anytime touchdown at 19-10. There was a lot of talk about Kelce going into this season. He didn't have his best year last year. Even the kind of marriage to Taylor Swift and all that was coming out, whether his head would really be in it. Travis Kelce's been great. He's had a great season. And look, if it wasn't for a pretty dodgy flag a couple of games ago, he'd be coming in here on a run of 3 touchdowns in a row. And I just think when the pressure is on the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes will go to his comfort blanket, and that is Travis Kelce. And yeah, I was surprised to see him close to 2-1 here for an anytime touchdown. I think that Kelce's playing well, he's catching the ball well, and I think when push comes to shove in the red zone against a hot Texas defense, he will go to his comfort blanket, Travis Kelce, and I think, 19-10, I'm taking that all day long. And yeah, I probably will. I've still, as I've said, I think the Chiefs will probably get there, and I certainly wouldn't back against them in the playoffs, no matter whether it's going through Arrowhead or not. But 2-3 weeks is a long time in the NFL. It wouldn't surprise me if we're back on here in a few weeks' time and talking about the Chiefs as hot favourites for the Super Bowl. It's that tight. But yeah, Kelce, anytime. What do you think of that?
I do like that. We just saw actually Tyler Warren find the red zone last week for the Colts as a tight end. And as you mentioned, Kelce, if he's getting targeted in the red zone, he's been great. He has 11 targets this season in the red zone, 8 catches. We've already seen him score the past few weeks. So I do think it's a great bounce back spot for him. In the way that Texans cornerbacks have been kind of covering wide receivers this season, Derek Stingley, he's been a beast on the outside. I do think when the going gets tough, Mahomes will target Kelce in the end.
Good stuff. Let's move on then to the punt team player prop double. Who are you taking this week, Luke?
Yeah, we're actually coming off a week where we just squeezed and nailed it last week. I had Travion Henderson over 65.5 rushing yards to close it out. He finished with 67, so I was sweating every yard in that one. And this week, I am going back to a running back, but it's from the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm taking Chase Brown over 51.5 rushing yards in this one. I mean, Brown has quietly been one of the most productive running backs in football right now. He's hit 70 more rushing yards in 5 of Cincinnati's last 6 games, and his workload is trending up. He's logged 15-plus carries in 3 straight, so the Bengals clearly trust him, and now he gets to go up against the Buffalo Bills, who have been one of the league's worst running defenses and one of the league's best running offenses, funnily enough. But the Bills, they did look sharp against the Steelers last week in terms of rushing defense, but the full season numbers are very ugly. They're giving up 5.2 yards per carry, which is tied for the second worst mark in the league, and they allow 141.3 rushing yards per game, which is 30th in the NFL. Opposing running backs have hit 52 yards or more in 8 of the 12 games, and not just barely, they've really been gashing this run defense. You look at their recent production, we saw Woody Marks go for 74 yards, Sean Tucker go for 106, Devin Achane has gone for 174 and 62 yards. We've also seen Rico Dowdle, Bijan Robinson, Alvin Kamara, Kendre Miller, and Derrick Henry all surpass this total. That group on its own has averaged 104.9 rushing yards against Buffalo. Not only has Brown have a great matchup here, but the return of Joe Burrow last week only helps even more. The Bengals pass attack is dangerous again. Defenses really can't stack the box, which opens up even more lanes for Brown. So I love the usage here. I love the matchup. I'll go Chase Brown over 51.5 rushing yards against the Bills this Sunday.
Yeah, believe it or not, Chase Brown was put onto waivers in my fantasy league halfway through the season. My wife picked him up, and he's been great. He's been absolutely great since she picked him up. So yeah, I could absolutely see that. And the angle with the Bills defense, I think is spot on. I was very surprised to see his line so low as well. I am taking a running back as well in the overs, and I'm taking Bucky Irvin, who to get over 70 rushing yards against the Saints. Returned last week after a long, long layoff that seemed to just drag on forever. He had a number of issues. It wasn't just the injury, I don't think, but it was great to see Bucky back and back with a touchdown. I was surprised to see him get so many touches last week. I think it's massive for the Bucs that they have a player like Bucky Irvin back, and he comes up against the Saints defense that is starting to really. It's been a bit poor all season. Obviously, the Saints have been very poor all season, but yeah, the Saints are a team in free fall. I think they're very much thinking of next season now, and the Bucs should control this game from the get-go, and they will be leaning on Bucky, particularly with Baker. I know he played last week, but he's still nursing that injury, and I think there'll be plenty of layoffs for Bucky Irvin, and look, he is brilliant after contact. And yeah, I thought 70 yards. I think Bucky Irvin's going to put in a show this week.
Yeah, I love that. We just saw Devin A-Chain go for 134 last week for Miami, and he averaged 6.1 yards a carry in that game. So tend to agree with you there. I actually have the Buccaneers as my survivor pick this week, so expecting them to get the job done and lean on Irving early and often.
Right, let's go into our big game treble, Luke. The Bears and the Packers and the Texans and Chiefs, you want to take them to a game? Who are you going with this week?
Yeah, so in the Bears-Packers game, we talked about it a bit. I don't like them at -6.5, but I'm going to buy them down, the Packers, to -2.5, which sits around 2-5 as our first leg to get them below a field goal. So I mentioned I do think they'll rely on Josh Jacobs in this game, run the rock early and often. And Matt LaFleur in December, he's just been awesome. He's 20-4 straight up, 10-1 at home, and with extra prep in December, he's 4-0 straight up. So I do think he will get the job done along with Jordan Love. And the main reason is going to be that pass rush. When Caleb Williams has been sacked 3 or more times in his career, Chicago is just 3-10 straight up the past 2 seasons. And Green Bay has really been heating up the quarterback the last few weeks. They've averaged 3.3 sacks over their last 3 games. So yeah, as that first leg, I would be taking the Packers -2.5. And then into the Sunday night football game with the Texans visiting the Chiefs. No, I took the Chiefs -3 as my main pick. For our big game treble here, I'm going to buy them down below that key number to -2.5, sitting at 3-5. As we mentioned, this is a great bounce back spot. Mahomes has never lost the 5th game when he's entered, losing 3 of 4. And when the Chiefs give up 31 or 30 plus points the previous week in November or later, Mahomes has gone 8-0 straight up in his career. So he's had 3 starts where they've been kind of reeling here too in this career. It's a great bounce back spot. So give me the Chiefs -2.5 as our second leg. And close us out. Who do you like in that Steelers-Ravens game?
Yeah, I think there's been a bit of an overreaction to the way the Ravens have been playing recently. I get they're 4-1 since Lamar's come back, but look, they've played the Dolphins, Vikings, Browns, Jets, and then they lost to the Bengals. So that 4-1's a little bit fudged in my eyes. There's pressure mounted on Mike Tomlin, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think he'll come out fighting. And I like the Steelers +6 here. I just think that, look, I was very happy to see Aaron Rodgers come to Mike Tomlin's defense. And this is a must-win for the Steelers, and they will have a point to prove. So yeah, Steelers for me, +6 at 10-11.
Awesome. Let's get it then. Yeah, we have 13-4 odds on the treble, so hopefully we can cash it in this week.
Right then, let's go into our best bets for the week. The score is 8-6 between you and Wilsh. I'm responsible partly for you being behind because I picked a loser last time I was on there. The shoe's on the other foot now because I get to pick hopefully a winner for Wilsh, but he's on a 4 winning stretch, so there's no pressure. Who are you taking this week?
Yeah, I just can't seem to get a leg up on Wilsh each week. Even when I get the win, I just see him winning again, but this week, we'll see how it turns out. I am actually going to go back to that AFC South matchup. I'm taking the Jacksonville Jaguars +1.5 as my best bet this week. So we mentioned in the intro, but the Colts really have been in free fall right now. They've lost 2 in a row. And actually, historically, they have not played well against Jacksonville. Since 2015, Indianapolis is just 3-16-1 against the spread. And across 9 different quarterbacks, not one of them has a winning ATS record versus the Jags. And it gets really worse when they leave Indianapolis. In road or neutral games against the Jaguars, the Colts are just 1-9 against the spread since 2015. Not only that, I love the way the Jags are playing. Trevor Lawrence really has thrived in divisional matchups, especially as an underdog. He started 7 games as a dog in the AFC South against either the Colts or Texans in his career, and he's 5-2 against the spread, covering by nearly a touchdown per game. The other point is that Sean Steichen and the Colts, they have not been great coming off divisional games. They're just 5-7 against the spread after playing a team in the AFC South, and they're 0-4 straight up and against the spread in their last 4 after facing the AFC South opponent. Obviously, the tough loss against the Texans last week. And, obviously Daniel Jones playing with that partially fractured fibula, he did not look like his full self last week. And he's really struggled in his career against defenses that are allowing fewer than 22 points per game, which the Jags are. He's just 7-18-1 straight up, including a 1-10-1 record in November or later. So the last bit is that Sauce Gardner, since joining Indianapolis, he's actually been a very bright spot of that pass defense, but he's currently doubtful this week. He's been the Colts' best coverage player per PFF. He has a 74.3 coverage grade, and the next closest cornerback in Indianapolis is a 54.6. Sauce has led the team in pass breakups over the stretch since joining, so him not playing this week will be a massive loss for their pass defense, which we talked about at the start of the year. That's really been their biggest weakness on defense, has been their pass D. So all in all, these two teams are tied atop the AFC South. I think the Jags will get the win here, kind of take control of the AFC South. So give me the Jacksonville Jaguars plus 1.5 in this one.
Yeah, I like your thinking there. The Jags they're starting to get a bit hot while the Colts are kind of faltering a little bit. So yeah, I would probably be in agreement with you there. I like Seattle Seahawks against the Falcons -7. Seattle have been going about their way quietly this year. They think they're second favourites to the Super Bowl, maybe. They're really hot, and Falcons are starting to take its toll, I think. They started off the season, I thought, quite promisingly. I was a little bit scared of them after the Bucs played them. Thought their defense looked really good. But it's starting to wane on them. They're on the field a lot because the offense is not clicking since Penix is out. I think the Falcons are really starting to struggle, and Seattle is probably the one team that you don't want to be playing at the moment when you're in that situation. They are a hot team, and I think I was surprised to see them just a touchdown behind. So yeah, give me them to win by more than a touchdown is my best bet of the week.
Yeah, they've been really great under Mike McDonald on the road. They're 9-4 against the spread on the road since he took over. And as you mentioned, Kirk Cousins has just been awful, really. He's 1-7 against the spread in his last 8 starts. And since 2022, he's just 4-10 against the spread as an underdog. So Seattle's definitely one I had circled as well. I think we could see that number tick up above -7 to maybe 7.5 or 8, which would be a prime teaser spot for me. Take him down to -1, -1.5. I love Seattle this week.
Great. Hopefully we can extend Wilsh's run to 5. I don't know if that necessarily counts if I get him the win, but we'll count it anyway. Mm-hmm. There you have it. Luke's best bet is the Jaguars plus 1.5 against the Colts. Mine is the Seattle Seahawks -7 against the Falcons. Well, Luke, we got through it. Few interceptions, I'd hope. Looks set for another cracking week of NFL action. So best of luck, everyone, with your bets. And remember, if you're 4th and 22 on your 22-yard line, call for the punt team.